And you also plan to, let's say, then launch a subscription model with these tools, is what I assume, right?
Yeah, so long
monetize.
term, I'm not in 100% sure. So when it comes to building software, my first idea is I want just to build stuff that is useful that people use. So release it for free, get feedback, get some sort of traction. Then I'm either going to do one of the two things, which is I'm either going to say, hey, all paid readers to my newsletter have access to these tools. So if you want access, you need to subscribe to my publication. So I'll bundle it, or I'll launch it as a standalone product. Hey, pay $1,000 a year and you can have access to all these tools, and my existing readers can get it for free, or for free for 5 years or something. But I think there's a big market for these tools, and I'm kind of surprised that the incumbents, they might have something around this, but not the way I would design it.
What would be the difference between what you are doing versus what Hindenburg was doing? Like, both of the similarities is that short selling, like both of you are trying to do short selling, in the sense covering companies which you want to short. But one difference which I see is that you don't yourself short them. Hindenburg used to short themselves. Are there any other differences?
Yeah, so there's several differences between me and activist short sellers such as a Hindenburg Research. The first is I'm not trading it. I'm not taking a financial stake. I only make money from reader subscriptions. Activist short sellers are trading it. And, I can't speak to any specific person's trading methodology, but in general, the way activist short sellers do is they might trade the stock with their own capital. They might short the company they're betting against, but oftentimes they use balance sheet partners. And this is true of Hindenburg as well as several other activist short sellers, which is when they publish on a company, they really think it's going to go down. So they'll use somebody, oftentimes outside the US, to take a big position against the stock and typically cover shortly after publication so they can make money and then share the profit. So you use a balance sheet partner to trade around the reports and split some of the profits, like 70-30, so the activist short seller can get money from this other person trading around the report. So not just they're trading around it, they use balance sheet partners to trade around it. And that's more or less an industry standard practice. The other big differentiator between me and activist short sellers such as a Hindenburg Research is I tend to be very document based. So I'm reading SEC filings, I'm reading lawsuits, I'm obtaining information through Freedom of Information Act requests. I'm really just seeing what's on the public domain and online, while activist short sellers, and especially Hindenburg, they might be document based. They also tend to be very source based. So you look at some of these activist short sellers and it's, we talk to 20 people in the industry. We talk to former employees, former contractors, whoever. And so that's one big difference between me and them. Part of the reason I don't talk to sources is I think it raises the legal and regulatory risk, especially around, are you getting material non-public information? I don't feel comfortable typically paying for information, but something you see with activist short sellers, and especially a Hindenburg Research, is they can pay a lot of money to get people to give them information. So that's one big differential, and that's not really talked about. But in one case, a former contractor for a public company, I believe, got $600,000 for sharing information. And that's kind of evolving in this space. So that's a big difference. And I think the last thing I would say is a differentiating factor is, for me, I try to do everything as I can, as organically and independently as possible. I do get reader tips and people messaging me, but I really kind of, especially now, try to stand alone in how I think and generate ideas. And I think not for all, but for some activist short sellers, and there's nothing wrong with this, is it's becoming more and more tip-based, where the genesis of an idea tends to be a tip rather than, more organic. So those are some of the differences. But we'll say activist short sellers in general have done a lot to expose fraud. And I think oftentimes another source of income for activist short sellers is working with regulators to get whistleblower awards. And that's something that isn't as talked about, but is another lucrative path in which you can, get whistleblower awards or finance whistleblower awards as an income stream. So even though it's similar spirit, exposing misconduct, the methods can be quite different.
If you learned something new from this video, do share it with your friends and subscribe to this channel so that we can bring you the best content possible. Also, if you want to watch this entire episode, click on the link in the description box and you can go to Kushal Lodha YouTube channel and watch the entire podcast episode. Thank you so much for watching this and have an amazing day.